What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. All right, so let's talk about this. So, Shaquille O'Neal, all right? Shaquille O'Neal, in my opinion, is one of the top five greatest centers in NBA history. I believe he's the second most dominant player in NBA history behind Wilt Chamberlain. Although I know he hates that. People put Wilt in that category with him, but it is what it is. Shaq was an amazing, amazing basketball player. I never seen anybody in my time in the NBA that dominant a player. Not even Michael Jordan. Jordan was greater, but as far as dominating the game in the way that he did, not in my lifetime. And the only other player that seems to exceed that was Wilt Chamberlain. But anyway, as great as Shaq was, you know what I'm saying? 27 points a game, 11, 12 rebounds a game, 3 assists, 2 blocks, high shooting percentage. One Achilles heel, obviously, was his free throw shooting. And also, of course, you know, he didn't really have much range outside of, 10 feet. But another weakness of his was that as his career progressed, he became increasingly out of shape more frequently. And, you know, he always tried to make excuses for it. And recently, I think, in my opinion, he tried to make excuses for that again. So when it was brought up how sometimes Shaq would come into training camp out of shape, he said the following, right? Quote, like everybody always talks about, oh, if you would have been in better shape, my method is my method. You beat me up so much during the year, I'm not doing shit in the summer. He said this on the Armchair Expert podcast. Excuse me. Because I already know mentally when I come back, I'm killing whoever's in my way. It takes me some time to get there, but I don't need to come in the first 40 games at full speed. Everybody's going to talk their shit, and that just makes me mad. Then I turn it on. I don't want to come in with the lights already on. I want to come in with the lights dim, see what's going on, and then flip them on at the right moment. Because a lot of times when you come in shape, you get worn out. I'd rather work up to it. So I just came in how I came in, whatever. And like I always say, I want a skinny Shaq, a medium Shaq, and a fat Shaq. Let me say this. I'll say this in Shaq's defense, right? The NBA game of 20 years ago, 25 years ago was a lot different than the NBA game of today. The NBA game of yesteryear was a more slower paced game, more half court orientated game. It was a game more dominated by big men. I think I've said this before. If you look at the 1999 50 game season top 20 scorers, I believe 14 of the top 20 scorers were post players. So that goes to show you how different the game was 20, 25 years ago. And you know, and the big men of that era, although they were becoming more athletic, like the Kevin Garnett's of the world, you still had traditional bigs, and they were big. And yeah, Shaq came into the league 295, 300, but he took a pounding too. And there was other big men that were huge. George Mirasan, 7'7", 310 pounds. Yao Ming, 7'6", 305 pounds. You know, Arvydas Sabonis, 7'3", 295 pounds. So, you know, Shaq wasn't the only big guy out there. So yeah, I do agree with his strategy that he need to put on muscle, right? But I think it's a cop-out to say oh, it's okay that I came into training camp 405 pounds. I'll just work it off during the year. By him doing that consistently, coming into training camp so out of shape, number one, you didn't really start seeing Shaq in mid-season form until after the All-Star break. Secondly, I thought it put too much of a toll on the others to step up while Shaq isn't playing at that All-Star level All-Star level, or All NBA level. You know what I'm saying? It put too much pressure on the other players, and as a consequence, sometimes during those Lakers years, and even during the Heat years, other players got hurt because they were playing outside of their normal capacity. And it's also easy for Shaq to do this when you got Kobe Bryant, who had the complete opposite philosophy, the complete total opposite. I'm sorry, but Shaq to me confirms that he had a lazy mentality. It's not all about you. You get paid. You can't sit up there. I'm sorry, but you can't sit up there and lecture Joel Embiid. You can't lecture all these other guys about staying in shape during the regular season. And mind you, this is a totally different NBA where the pace is so much faster, right? The pace is so much faster. Big men are now oftentimes required to come out of the paint and play defense, which you never wanted to do because you didn't have the stamina. You already said the 1 year you played 40 minutes a night damn near killed you. Whereas Bill Russell averaged 42 minutes a night for his career. Chamberlain averaged 45 minutes a night for his career. And they played in a much faster paced league. Anyway, I don't really want to get into that argument, man. But anyway, nah, bro. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. No. I've seen Shaq come in to training camp and start the regular season off way overweight. Way overweight. Averaging, 17, 18 points a night the first month or whatever. And Kobe got to go out there and take up the slack. Others, Rick Fox and Robert Ory got to take up more of the slack while Shaq, slowly works off the blubber. Nah. Mm-mm. And I still believe that's the reason why Shaq and Pat Riley didn't get along with each other, because Pat Riley wasn't about that shit. Pat Riley wanted his players to come into shape, come into training camp, and play basketball in shape. You know what I'm saying? Like Showtime. Those guys, they were unbelievably in shape. Magic Johnson and all those guys, man. You could even argue that they overtrained. You can't make that argument with Shaq, And when Shaq, it's just interesting, when Shaq went to Miami, all of a sudden now he was down to 320. Shaq hadn't been 320 at that time in about 9 years. And even though Shaq was able to play 19 seasons, I strongly believe that if Shaq had stayed around the 325 mark for most of his career, Shaq could have played 22, 23 seasons. So no, I can't give Shaq that one, man. I'm sorry. Uh-uh. You had the luxury of doing that because you were playing with a guy who had the philosophy that you got to come into training camp. You got to come into each season in your absolute best shape. You played with a guy who had possibly the most, had the strongest work ethic in NBA history. So you had the luxury of doing that. Could you imagine if Shaq just had a decent work ethic, what the Lakers could have done? Baby, that's all I got to say about it. Tell me what you got to say.